guys, it's Bren, and tonight I'm here to kind of finish up my dating history, I guess you could call it. I have told you most everything now at this point, in my adult life anyway. Probably don't need to go back to like high school and college or anything, but I've told you about my marriage and divorce. I told you about Adam, who I dated after that. I didn't have like one video on him, but I've mentioned him enough, I think, in other videos that don't really need to say anything more about it. And then after that was Nick, and then all of the boys of summer, that video, which was basically just summer of 2013, all the online dates that I went on. And then there was Jack, my last video. I've also told you about my most recent breakup, and so the only thing left to cover is really everything that happened between Jack and Josh. So that's what I'm going to cover tonight. Then we'll be all caught up. I have a house guest tonight. This is Hazel. Say hi, Hazel. Hello. This is my niece, my sister's dog. She is a Morkie, a Maltese Yorkie. And she's staying with me this weekend and next weekend. So everyone's excited except for Clover, my cat. Clover tolerates Hazel. I think Clover really liked having Roxy, and when Roxy passed away, my old dog, Clover was sad, but Hazel's a little much for her. But once they get the dominance thing down, and once Clover like hisses and snarls enough that she feels like she's in control, they had a little battle last night when it came to going to bed. Clover sleeps on the bed. Hazel wanted to sleep on the bed. Clover just needed Hazel to know that she needed to stay on the other side of me, and then everyone was okay. But this is Halloween weekend, or the weekend before Halloween, so I'm kind of glad that I don't really have anything to do and that I am just chilling with the puppy, because, you know, it's gonna be just drunk drivers and slutty costumes, and that's how I know I'm old, is that I'm kind of like happy that I don't have anything to do this weekend, except I did open a bottle of wine tonight, which is weird for me. Like, you guys always see me drinking beer. I don't drink wine at home, really. I'll drink it with a meal sometimes at a restaurant, but I don't know, this had been in my fridge for like 2 or 3 years. It's Pinot Grigio. I don't like red wine at all, only white wine. So I was like, okay, I mean, sure, that works. And so let's get into this. This will pick up timeline-wise right where Jack and I left off. And by the way, that was a big story for me to tell, and a lot of the comments were just as I expected they would be, the same that I got in real life, you know, just a lot of he's a jerk, and he was using you, and he was playing you, and you got duped and all of that. I know that's how it comes off. I knew that's how it was going to come off, because I can only tell you guys what happened with words. I can't, like, convey the emotion or the way that it felt or whatever, but I did get a lot of private messages, more than on any other video, from people sharing similar stories, and I really appreciated that. Generally, I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. A couple of the guys I'm going to tell you about tonight were jerks, and I knew it right away. Jack, if he was just totally a jerk, then I guess he got me, but I feel like he was acting like a jerk, but he also loved me. I don't know. If anything, he wasn't so much of a jerk that he continued to play me. He did let me go because he knew that he could not be what I needed him to be. But that left me completely single again and turning back to online dating because I was lonely and bored and, you know, hey, so I put myself back out there, went out with a few guys, I think pretty uneventful stuff to start off with. I dated this guy who was a vegetarian. He was the only guy I've ever dated who was a vegetarian, and at the time, I was not. I had been, and now I am again, but wasn't when I was dating him. He was nice. I remember we double dated with my sister and stuff, but like we just had no like physical connection. There was just no chemistry, so we went out like 6 times, and that was it. Then I went out with this, I remember this one guy, just really pulled a line. This is a brilliant line, by the way. We went out and we met at this restaurant that was kind of between where we lived. He lived about an hour away. So we each drove about 30 minutes, had 1 beer, and then he was like, so I don't want to drink and drive. We should probably either go back to your place or my place. Just like, I mean, you make it seem admirable because you're saying you don't want to drink and drive, right? So who's going to argue with that? But at the same time, it's like, why did we even meet here then if we were only going to have one? I'm like, I can have 1 more and then like some water and still be okay. Or we could just drink Pepsi. Like, seriously. He was very suave, knew exactly what he was doing, but that was not the type of guy that I was looking for. Then I dated this guy I'm going to call Pat. And Pat is kind of an interesting story. Pat was 28 and I was like 32 probably at this time, maybe 31 still. No, 32. So he was a little younger than me, but that was the type of guy that I was finding. I was finding a lot of guys that were a little bit younger, I think just because of like my taste in music and like what I liked to do and the fact that I was on an online dating website. I happened to meet some younger people. But he had just gotten divorced because again, 95% of the guys on internet dating websites, or people, I should say, probably 95% of the people, I don't really know about the female population on there, but we're all on the rebound. Everybody's on the rebound. And so it's just a whole bunch of like brand new, like freshly divorced people. And so Pat was one of those. And again, I knew that I shouldn't pursue it because what had happened with Jack and with Nick, but I went out with him and we hit it off so well on the first date. Except he was extremely hot. He was so hot. He is definitely, I hate saying this because he was a jerk, but he is like the hottest guy that I have ever kissed, ever. Like, he was 6'5". He was a firefighter. He had like kind of a half pompadour, like think Brendan Urie style hair and full sleeve tattoos with punk rock bands. I mean, I was a sucker for that. He was so good looking. I didn't like it. I was very intimidated. I talked about that a little bit in my Nick video that like, I just, I want to be on kind of a level playing field. This was weird. I didn't expect that he would like me, but we really hit it off basically because of music. And I remember we went to all these different bars and we just like controlled the jukebox at everyone and we're just playing songs for each other. We had so much fun that like when all the bars closed down, we went to a 24-hour diner because we were just like having such good conversation and just so much fun. We didn't want the night to end. And then we went on a second date. Very similar thing, and I remember we were talking about like he had like heart palpitations like me, and it was like we both have heart palpitations. It was stupid, but we just kept finding little things that we had in common. He also told me on like either our first or second date that he'd had a vasectomy, and he was like, just want to make sure that's okay with you. It is reversible. Like, I mean, he was acting right off the bat like I was this perfect woman and we were gonna be together. But at this point, I had learned enough to be aware of that and know that that was not good. And then what happened was on our, like what was going to be our third date was that my friends were having a cookout on like a Saturday and his friends were having a cookout and our friends weirdly and just coincidentally lived in the same neighborhood. So we decided that we would go to both cookouts. And then the day of that, he called me and said that he had hurt his back at work. So he just wasn't going to be able to get together like when we had said we would, but maybe he would meet up with me later. So I went to my friend's cookout alone, and then he was texting me later that night, like maybe like 7:30, and he was like, okay, so I, got out of bed and I'm at my friend's cookout now. Do you want to come over? And I was like, well, I thought we were going to kind of go to both. Like, do you want me to go there for a little bit and then we could come back to my friend's cookout? And he just basically didn't want to come to my friend's cookout at all. And he was trying to just say, he was like, I'll come pick you up. And I was like, well, if you do that, will you come in and like have one drink with my friends? Didn't want to do that. He just wanted me to go to his friend's cookout. And I was like, that's really shitty. Like, it just felt very indicative of the kind of person that he was. We said we were going to go to both. I'm going to meet all your friends. Why can't you just come inside and meet my friends for 1 minute? It rubbed me the wrong way. And I ended up not going, just telling him, forget it. I'm going to stay here at my friend's cookout. And then I remember him calling me later and being like mad that he didn't see me that night. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you totally could have seen me. Like, I'm the one who should be mad at you. That was super shitty what you did. And anyway, the whole thing just kind of fell apart. But it had started off like with one of the most amazing first dates that I had ever had. But again, that's how it was with Nick too. And it's just like, I feel like these people who are just so freshly divorced or so freshly out of something so serious and long, just right away want to transfer all those feelings over to the next person they're dating. But then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, I can't do that. And that's why people shouldn't just go date on the rebound like that. It's very dangerous. People can get hurt. So that was it with him, except I do want to say years later, I was out with my sister at a bar, and this was when I was dating Josh, so it was, quite a bit later. We ran into Pat, and sure enough, when my sister met him, my sister's jaw hit the floor. She was like, you dated him? She was like, please tell me you slept with him. And that's the thing, like, I'm very conservative with that, but I kind of had to laugh and be like, yeah, maybe I should have, because he's so hot, but that's a bad thing, because he's a huge douche. He's, like, hot and he knows it, you know? But he was there with a girl, and she was hanging all over him and all this stuff, but then he, like, got away from her for a minute, came up to me, asked me to dance or talk, or I don't know, we were on the dance floor when we were talking. I don't remember how we got there. But he started hitting on me. He was like, hey, so are you single now? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it looks like you're here with someone. And he was like, oh, her? No, like, I don't really know her. She's just hanging all over me, but I don't like her. It's nothing. We're not dating. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what, Pat? I think I said something kind of snarky, like, next time you meet a good girl, you know, treat her right. Or something stupid like that. But he was just kind of like, yeah, you know, like, he knew he fucked up and he knew that he wasn't going to win me back or anything. But then I remember going outside and my sister was outside with the girl that he had been with, and this girl was crying because she had met him on Tinder or something, and she was like from the Chicago suburbs and had driven into town to meet Pat and go out with Pat because Pat had told her that they were perfect for each other and they were soulmates and they were going to get married and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, so glad I dodged that bullet. Man, what a creep. And anyway, I also remember right around the time that I was still going through my Jack heartbreak, because that was still a cloud hanging over me through all of this. I actually was on like OkCupid or something, and this guy that I dated in college, Sean, that's his real name. I'm saying his real name because he's my friend now, so he wouldn't mind if I talked about him. He would probably get a kick out of this. Hi, Sean, if you're watching this. I doubt he will, but we dated in college for like a hot minute. Like, it was not very long at all, like a couple of weeks. We went to one concert together or something, but he found me on OkCupid, and what was so funny was that he emailed me and he was like, I wasn't sure if it was you, and then it said Newfound Glory, and I knew it was you. I'm like, yep, that's me, Newfound Glory girl. But he had just gone through a divorce, like just wasn't even divorced, just kind of like separated. We ended up hanging out just as friends, and he was talking about his divorce and I was talking about Jack and the whole thing and everything, and we just settled into a friend zone. His friends would ask me though, why didn't I want to date him? And my friends asked me the same thing, you know, why don't you and Sean date? Sean's 6'8", so they're like, you guys look so good together, whatever. And, you know, I think we just kind of got into a friend zone right away talking about like our exes, but also I wouldn't let myself even consider it, because the reason Sean had gotten divorced was that he wanted kids so badly. He really wants to be a dad, and his ex didn't. And I didn't know that. I was pretty sure I didn't, so I wasn't going to do that to him. You know what I mean? And now he is married to someone. He ended up marrying like the third or fourth girl that he met on online dating. She's super nice, and they're married and they're trying. So good luck to them, but that was just never right. It was one of the benefits that comes from online dating though, is like reconnecting with my friend Sean, or like meeting my friend Zach, or like just some of the cool people I've met along the way. It's not all bad. Some of it's bad. And then there was this big life-changing thing that I did. So, up until this point, and now we're at like April now, let's say, April-ish. I had just been so badly wanting to be in a relationship and just not good at being alone. Just failing miserably at being single and hating it, and being so lonely and like hating sleeping alone. And, you know, I felt a little desperate, to tell you the truth. And as I mentioned in my last video about Jack, I kind of kept doing this thing where, because I was sad and lonely, I kept feeling connections with guys who were sad and lonely. And I don't do that anymore, at least I hope that I don't. But as I explained in my Jack video, I was this emo kid, and misery loves company. And I felt like when I met these guys who were going through divorces, or, you know, having something big happening to them in their life, that they got me because I was like sad and lonely, and like they were sad and lonely. You know, it was just a really bad, vicious cycle, and I knew that. And there was something that I did that helped me break out of this, which is that I went on a road trip by myself to Texas and back But I never stayed alone. I stayed with 4 different friends. And it's probably one of the coolest things that I've ever done. And I feel like it got me so much more over Jack because I was still pining over Jack and I was still sad about that months later. And then I went on this road trip and it really was just like this new beginning. So the road trip comes about because there was this other, now it's somewhat tied to meeting someone online, but as you'll see in a second, it wasn't something I did for a guy. So I had met this guy, I'm going to call him Brian, and I had met him, he lived in Waco, Texas, and I had met him online like the year before or something, and we had just like randomly talked like a little bit, and then that was it. But then we randomly started talking again for some reason, and I don't know why. After Jack and I split, we might have been like Facebook friends, he might have seen that, offered his support, something. I had told him the whole Jack story, but we kind of just were talking as friends, Brian and I, because he lived like, I don't even know how many miles that road trip was. He lived many, many miles away. It was like 13 hours at least away. And probably more than that, actually, because the longest leg of my trip was 13 hours, and that was to St. Louis. So 20-ish hours away. He lived far. But we just talked as friends. He was cool because he was a professor too, so we talked about teaching a lot. And it just was a coincidence that one of my very best friends from high school, my friend Mike, lived in Killeen, Texas at the time. He was in the Army, and he and his wife lived in Killeen, which was only an hour from Waco. And Mike had been bugging me to come down and see him like for a while. You got to come down, you got to come down. And this gave me a reason to kind of do that because I was like, well, Brian lives down there too. It would be cool to meet him and hang out. And I started just kind of feeling like, a road trip could be really good for me. It could really be like something just really cool to do on my own, like that I don't need a guy to go on a vacation. And then I started talking to a couple of my friends. And what I ended up doing was driving from the Rockford area where I live to Carbondale because I had a friend who was actually Adam's friend, and that's how I knew the guy. But Adam had a friend who was down at SIU, and he invited me to stay with him for a night. So, and then I went from there, and it was 11 hours to Waco, and I hung out with Brian for 2 nights, and then an hour to Killeen, and I stayed with my friend Mike, I think, for 2 nights too, and then I drove 13 hours to St. Louis, stayed with my friend Roxana, who lives there, and then went back. So it was like a week or something that I was gone, and it was so liberating. I didn't have to stay anywhere alone. I wouldn't want to go on a road trip by myself and have to like stay in a hotel by myself or anything. But this is why when I go do the Test Candle road trip, I tell you guys it's no sweat for me. I'm going to Texas and back by myself. Like, I can drive like a champion. I'm not so good driving overnight. I would much rather drive during the day, but I'm a skilled long distance driver. And this was just the coolest trip because I just had my music turned up so loud, and I was just singing the whole way, and it felt like it just was good to do something on my own. It just made me feel like I can do this. I can be single. I can be on my own, and I can be okay. And it was so much fun too. It was a blast. The one thing I will say is that the couple of nights that I spent with Brian, I sort of did develop like a crush on him, is the way to put it, I think. I felt like I had like a schoolgirl crush. And we did end up like the second night getting kind of close and like kissing and stuff, but we did not sleep in the same bed or anything. I don't think he wanted to pursue anything with me, and that was probably the smart thing to do. And then right after the trip, he was going to like Europe for work, and so I didn't talk to him for a very long time afterwards, and I barely talk to him now. Like, I think we're still Facebook friends, but he doesn't really use Facebook, so really haven't talked to him much after that trip. But once I had moved on from spending a couple of nights with him to going to my buddy Mike's house and hanging out with him and his wife and their daughter, I remember staying up late with Mike, just kind of talking about how I kind of had like a butterflies in my stomach feeling like about Brian, and then I kind of like missed him and was sad, and it really just felt like a schoolgirl crush, kind of harmless. Had Brian wanted to pursue that or felt the same way, I don't know what would have happened, but it's probably best that he didn't, I guess, But that trip was really, really good for me. And then the other thing that was really good for me was this guy, Dave. Guy I'm going to call Dave anyway. So right around the time of the trip, I had met this guy on an internet dating website who lived about an hour away in the Chicago suburbs, and Dave was really, really nice. Not the way like the vegetarian was nice, but we had no connection. Um, you know, Dave was this is another one that's hard for me to describe. I went out with Dave. We had a good time. He was really nice. I think we ended up kissing on our first date. I sort of have this little theory. Every time that if I just looking back at my dating history, all the online dates that I've been on, so many. Every time that it's worked out, like for any length of time, like where I've continued dating someone for at least like 2 months or something, we always kissed on the first date. Not to say that everyone that I went out with a second or even third time had I kissed them on the first date. That's not true. But anyone that lasted a significant amount of time, looking back, we had kissed on the first date. I don't know if that's something to say about chemistry, because there certainly were more that I didn't kiss at all and definitely didn't kiss on the first date, but none of those really went anywhere. So maybe there's something to that. Dave and I kissed on the first date. We had met in the middle, had fun, went out with him again. We had similar taste in music, so that was awesome. Again, whenever I had that music connection with a guy, that was a huge thing because it just gave us so much to talk about and so much to do. Dave and I went to a lot of concerts. I ended up dating Dave for 4 months over the entire summer, but we were never exclusive. And I actually think I had met him, gone out with him a couple of times before my road trip. But like at that point, like it was just like a guy that I had dated a couple of times. It wasn't like anything serious or anything. Like it wasn't cheating or anything like that. But when I got back, Dave and I hung out a little bit more. And we sort of fell into this pattern where we would talk every day and we would text every day. And we would flirt and send kissy face emojis and stuff. We had inside jokes that were hilarious. He was a very nice guy. And it wasn't that we didn't have physical chemistry. We did. But there was something missing. And what it was, at least what I thought it was that emotional connection. Like we had a mental connection, we had really good conversation, we had fun together, we had a physical connection, but we had no emotional connection. And with Nick and Zach and even my pen pal Steve, gotta remember all these fake names, and with Jack, and even the first couple of times that I went out with Pat, there was this, I felt like I could tell them anything, I felt like I could bare my soul, I felt like they understood me and kind of got me, and that was not how it was with Dave. Dave was so normal. He was just totally normal, and so at first, that sounds great. You guys are probably like, you should have dated him, you be with him, he's normal, be with him, but I just couldn't connect. I couldn't connect. And who I am is the kind of person that needs to be able to sit down and tell you all my stories and this, and make that, have that emotional connection. And Dave was not the person that I could talk to about those things. I didn't have the urge to. It's not like I tried and screwed up. It just didn't feel like I could. He was so nice. So we started seeing each other weekly. But here's the thing, when you're really dating someone, if you're in a relationship for sure, and they live about an hour away, maybe you only see them on the weekends, but you're going to go down on Friday night after work and you're not going to go home till Sunday night at the latest. You're going to spend all the time that you can together. That's not how it was with Dave. We would make plans to hang out Saturday night and I would go see him on Saturday night. Sometimes eventually I did start spending the night and then we'd occasionally grab brunch on Sunday, but then it was bye, see you later, wasn't hanging out into Sunday night. There was one time that we spent 2 nights together because we had concerts and that was a lot of him. And so what Dave was actually perfect. He was kind of what I needed at the time. He was not a boyfriend. He was very nice though. He could have been dating other people for all I knew. And like I said, I went on the road trip kind of after I'd been out with him a couple of times. And then I had obviously kissed Brian and stuff. So, we weren't exclusively dating. But I felt like we respected each other a great deal. And I still felt like I was single, but I had someone to do all that boyfriend stuff with. I had someone to go to concerts with. I had someone to talk about my day with. I had someone to say goodnight to. But emotionally, I was on my own. I don't know. It's hard to explain. it got to this point where everybody from my friends to my therapist was telling me that maybe Dave thought that we were in a relationship. Like, seriously, like my friend Cassie was like, you know, maybe he's just a dumb guy and he thinks you're boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm like, we are not, but no, I really don't think that's it. I think we have like an understanding of what we are to each other, that he is my Mr. right now and I am his Mrs. right now. And we have a great deal of mutual respect for each other in those roles. But we have kind of this unspoken agreement that we're not soulmates, and we're not meant to be, and we're kind of just having fun. But after 4 months of my friends and therapists and parents and everyone being like, so what is the deal with Dave? And all my friends had met Dave and they really liked him because he was a very nice guy. They basically like made me ask him what was going on between me and him. And it didn't feel right. It did not feel right because I knew what was going on between me and him, and is that we were killing time together, having fun, not emotionally connecting, not the one for each other. I knew this, and yet one night the last night that I ever saw Dave, we were sitting out at the bar. We're facing like ahead because we're like sitting at the bar counter. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta do it. So I'm like, so, mind you, this is a guy I'd spent almost every weekend with for 4 months. We should have been pretty comfortable together at this point, but like we just never got there. I was like, so a lot of my friends are asking, you know, what's the deal with us? Like, are we in a relationship? Like, and you know, I thought I'd bring it up maybe because we have been dating for like 4 months, you know, if this is going anywhere. And as I'm talking, Dave just gets bright red. He goes into like panic mode and is just like staring straight ahead. So I'm like, so never mind. I mean, I just wanted to make sure like you didn't, I didn't know where you were. I mean, I don't even know how I got out of that conversation. I know it was the last time I ever saw him because that's it. And that's probably fine that was the last time that I ever saw him. That had maybe run its course. That must have happened like early August because on my birthday, which is August 20th, I remember he texted me, but at that point I hadn't talked to him for like a week and a half because we just sort of like after that, like we didn't have a breakup or anything. We just kind of stopped talking. And again, it was like we had an understanding. But he texted me on my birthday to say happy birthday. And I remember saying something just kind of like, you know, thanks, you didn't have to do that. And he was kind of like, oh, I'd be sort of a jerk if I didn't. Like he was a nice enough guy for what we were doing. And, you know, I think I ended up telling him, I'm like, you know, I just want to let you know that you don't really know this, but I think you kind of helped me through a hard time. And he was like, oh, good. I'm glad I could do that. And then, just like so many other guys that I've dated, very shortly after he and I stopped talking, he got into a very serious relationship with another girl, and they posted all these very, you know, pictures of each other on Facebook all over the place. And I was just kind of like, damn, you know, occasionally I would take a picture of Dave and I together and post it on Facebook, and he would like approve it to his timeline. But he would have never dreamed in a million years of making like his profile picture of me and him because we weren't together. And yet right away he starts dating this other girl and boom, profile picture, everything else. I had to unfollow because I was like, good for him, but I don't want to see it. I am Good Luck Chuck. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie with Dane Cook. Good Luck Chuck. I Good Luck Chuck everyone. And there were a couple more dates I went on after that. There was this 22-year-old. So I'm 32. And my sister met some guy online. And we were out. And she wanted to meet up with this guy she'd met on like OkCupid or something. And we did. And he had his friend with him. And his friend was 22. And I think his friend was just bored. And just thought it was kind of like a game. Like I felt like he thought I was a challenge. He kept asking me out. I kept turning him down. And he was after me for a long time. And I finally gave in. And like we went out like 3 times. And it was sort of just fun. You know, I think for him it was a challenge. It was a game. For me it was like, I'm 32 and I got a 22-year-old. Kind of a little bit of an ego boost. But that was it. And then I Good Luck Chucked him. He's married now to the next girl that he dated after me. And there was another guy that I went out with who really liked New Found Glory. And he was so excited to meet me. Just like so excited. He kept wanting to meet early. Like we had said, we'll meet on Saturday. And then like every day that week, he's like, let's meet up today. He was just overly eager. And then when we finally did meet up, he like wasn't into me at all. And I really think it was because of how I looked. that it just didn't fit what he had in his head or something. And at that point, I was just so over it. I had become much more okay with being alone and much more used to it. I still wanted a relationship, but I was getting so sick of online dating that when I did meet Josh and he was normal, like Dave was, and not like super emo, he was going through a very long relationship ending, but he seemed like okay about it and actually wanted a girlfriend and not just like thought he did, like Nick and Jack, but like did. And yet I could connect with him and he liked the same music. I mean, yeah, I thought 2 kids, crazy baby mama, that's nothing compared to what I've been through. But then you guys know how that went. It's my most viewed video on this channel. And now here I am, dog sitting the weekend before Halloween. Oh, Hazel. Whoa, what are we gonna do? 35 and single. I did not think I would end up here. Childless, yeah, I kind of counted on that, but this, I don't know. So, a lot of you guys have been telling me that I should date, that I should get back out there, and I kind of have been talking to some people online, but I'm not clicking with anyone, and the selection just seems to be diminishing so much every year older that I get, every time I get back on those sites. I'm not trying that hard. I just feel like maybe I'll be single forever. Like, honestly, maybe that's just the way it's supposed to be. Because people always want to tell you that there's someone for everyone. And everyone has a soulmate, you just have to meet them. And you'll meet them when you last expect it. Or you'll meet them when you stop trying. And that's the biggest load of crap ever. Because if I'm not online dating, like, I'm not going to meet anybody. I don't talk to people at the grocery store. Like, this is just not going to happen. You know, this isn't the movies. And I've exhausted all channels at this point. There's not somebody for everybody. People die alone. There are people out there right now in their 50s, in their 60s that are single and have been single for a very long time. 2 of my mom's best girlfriends. My mom has like 3 very close girlfriends from high school still. One of them is married with kids like my mom is. The other 2, single forever. Like, I've never even known them to really date anybody. I think they've like casually dated, but they just like live alone, and one has a dog and like the other one's a career woman, and like they're just single. And there is not someone for everyone. Maybe there's not someone for me. Maybe I should stop trying, because I'm really getting to the point where I'm sick of online dating and I just don't want to do it anymore. And it would be a lot easier to... I've gotten very settled into my life now. I don't care about sleeping alone anymore. It's fine. I actually prefer it. It was a little much having both the cat and the dog in the bed last night. You know, I have my apartment the way that I want it. And now that I'm getting so into the vegan thing, I feel like it would be hard for me to date someone who wasn't. Like, and that's a big restriction to put on that. Like, it's wouldn't be a deal breaker or anything, but I just feel like, I don't know if someone would be able to handle me now with all this stuff that I've learned and things that I want to talk about. I don't know. I just, you know, the only big thing for me is like having someone to go to concerts with. Like, that was what was so great about Dave. It's like I was single, but I had someone to go to concerts with. I feel like that's kind of lacking for me now. So maybe if I could figure out how to go to concerts alone, which I totally could do. There's just a little bit of a safety concern for me because I go to concerts a lot of times in like downtown Milwaukee or Chicago. I don't really like being alone at night in those areas, but you know, if I could figure that out, I really don't need a man. Nobody's perfect. There's not going to be some perfect guy out there for me. That's why I cut Josh so many breaks, and so many of these other guys too. I think that I could come up with my perfect guy though, if I took a little piece of all of them, right? Like there was something that I loved about my ex-husband. I would probably take his like sense of humor. He could always make me laugh. There's that emotional connection and just like the good listening skills of Nick. Like, that he listened to all my stories and appreciated who I was based on that. Zach, the kindest person that I've ever dated. Steve, he was so like indie and cool and just had like the best taste in music and culture and stuff. Dave, just being like laid back and normal. Jack, and that crazy familiarity that just like we knew each other, just like that feeling so close without having to say anything. And Josh, how much fun we had together, that we could do anything. We could just go out of town and just have like a blast. He was a lot of fun. And there's something about all of them that I loved that made us work so well. And then they were just other things that made it all come crashing down. Perfect guy's not out there. And maybe it's just easier to be single forever. You know, I used to think that this one particular friend of mine had like the perfect relationship. They had gotten married and were very happy. And then there was this other friend of mine who also, like, she had moved across the country to be with this guy, and they just seemed so happy together. Neither one of those relationships is together anymore. And it makes me have to wonder if anybody is truly happy. Obviously, all relationships are work, but the grass is always greener too. When I was married, I remember I had this boss who was in her 30s, single, had her own apartment, and I remember going over there and being like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I never got this. I never had that, like Mary Tyler Moore, Carrie Bradshaw type of life where I was on my own with my own place, and I just thought it would be so great. I've got that now. That is my life. And now it's like, I miss some things about being in a relationship, but only some things. And there are other things that I know I would miss about this if I got in a relationship. But I guess I'm glad that I've done both. But again, I just think I did them in the wrong order maybe. But maybe not. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the way that it should be. Is any relationship totally happy? Because I feel like so many couples that I know were happy, but can't keep it up. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't. Does anybody else feel the same way? I mean, I know what I would say to me if I was my friend, you know, but again, like, no, some people don't ever find the one. Most of them have not tried as hard as I have. So maybe the thing to do is just go on more road trips. I don't know. I feel like I should end this video because now I feel like I'm just kind of rambling a little bit. Yeah, like I said, I'm not used to this, but I haven't drank that much. I'm going to see you guys later. I've got a few more topics coming up, and if there's anything that you guys want to hear me talk about, let me know, because I'm sort of getting to the end of my list of things that I wanted to talk about on this channel, but I'm still having a lot of fun with it, and hopefully this week I will have a video up on my Candle channel too, because I do plan on hitting the store. Okay, this apparently is potent. For holidays, the holiday haul. So I'll be back with that. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.